Hi, I'm Troy Evans. I'm the forest ecologist for Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I've been here for about 10 years working on science and resource management. Trees have a lot going on. They exist on a different time scale than us. In a deciduous forest like this, without us intervening, maybe not thousands of years, but these trees could live for hundreds and hundreds, and in certain parts of the country they can live for thousands. So it's interesting to think that we're often walking into a forest like this. We're walking into something that started hundreds of years ago, and we're a small part of the time passing through. And so having an admiration for that is a sort of a nice way to enter a forest and think about a tree. Deciduous trees are mostly broadleaf trees. So if you want to look at categorizing trees, they're either broadleaf or they're evergreen, needle sort of trees. Most deciduous trees are broadleaves, and they have their leaves on for part of the year and then they lose them for the other part. That's what makes them deciduous, and that's what deciduous means. And there are even some needled trees that do the same thing, lose their needles for part of the year as well. A tree, just like all plants, need a few things to live, and that was sunlight, of course, water, and carbon dioxide. That's what they use to make sugars and get their food source. They also need the appropriate amount of nutrients and soil substrate to grow in. So deciduous trees are not any different than that. They still have the same needs. And if they're living in an area where those needs are not met all the year, then they have adapted to lose their leaves, so they're not using energy on those leaves whenever they're not getting what they need to survive. Again, when you're in the temperate areas, that can be a mixture of cold, but really it's the amount of daylight we have. As the nights get darker, there's not enough sun to photosynthesize, or in some parts of the world it could be that it's too dry part of the year, and so they can be deciduous due to drought and not due to temperatures. So that's a lot of interesting science that goes into the loss of leaves. We've talked a little bit already about why they would lose their leaves, and that's because the conditions for photosynthesis are not right anymore. And so for us, it's usually that our daylight is too short, our nights are too long, and leaves are expensive. It's a big piece of plant material that has to be maintained. Chlorophyll, what we use for photosynthesis, what a tree uses for photosynthesis, is expensive. It takes a lot of energy to keep that up. And so at a certain point, if that leaf is not gathering enough energy to be worth giving it extra energy over what it takes to keep that leaf alive, then it makes sense for the trees to lose them. So that's why we have a deciduous period. And sort of the way that works is the tree will create this corky layer of cells at the base of the leaf where the leaf meets the stem, and slowly cut that leaf off from the resources of the tree. And that triggers the leaf to start losing chlorophyll, absorbing what it can back in as far as the nutrients and chemicals that are in there. And then as that chlorophyll slowly breaks down, we lose the greenness that are in our leaves, and the other pigments that are in there start to show through. So we have things like carotenoids, which are yellow and component orange, and anthocyanins, which are red to purple, and different varying levels of those determine what really the fall color is. And once that leaf is completely cut off of the tree through that creating of the abscission layer, that corky material, then the leaf can fall off the tree without the tree being left with any damage to it. Well, ecosystems are largely structured around their major vegetation. So here in a temperate forest like we're in now, trees are the cornerstone of the ecosystem we're in. If you're in a desert, it may be cactus or whatever else. So the vegetation is usually the cornerstone of an ecosystem. And deciduous trees play a huge role. They provide structure and habitat for all the other creatures that are here. They provide a leaf litter, which provides nutrients for the soil and dictates what sort of soils grow there and what sort of animals can live. If you can think about an area like this with no trees, then the amount of habitat for everything to live here is really reduced, and it really changes what sort of life can be found in this ecosystem. So they're the cornerstone of the temperate forest. So if we think about our vertebrates, those birds in a temperate forest nest in trees or in shrubs in some sort of vertical growing vegetation. So they're relying upon it for their nest, but also that's where they mostly forage for food. Whether they're berry eaters or insect eaters, they're usually foraging in the trees. Of course, a lot of mammals use trees as homes. You can think of squirrels and certain mice and bats, and the list keeps going of things that use trees as habitat and food sources. Um, and then as we get down into invertebrates, there's a lot of things that either use trees to live in and to feed on, or live in the leaf litter that comes from the timber and trees. Yeah, that's a great question. Supporting parks and other natural areas that preserve and protect trees is always a great place to start. If you have individual trees that you like at your house or in neighboring properties, um, taking care of those the best you can, and part of that may be doing things like leaving leaves on the ground near the trees and not removing all those. Um, that not only helps the tree, but it also helps all the stuff that also survives in the soil and needs that for nutrition. Things that also overwinter in the leaves, it's important for them. A lot of insects do that. Um, and just look up general good tree care and do the best you can with that. But really supporting those who take care of trees and natural areas is a great way.